Yuji, my boy, you gonna punch and kick this one away too? What's up guys, I've got Pencil here, and here we are to do a breakdown and review of chapter 258 of Jujutsu Kaisen, which is known as The Decisive Battle in the Uninhabited Demon Infested Shinjuku Part 30, or, in the official translations, Inhuman Makio Shinjuku Showdown Part 30. Whichever you prefer. But we have a whole bunch to talk about, and in this case, we do have a decent chunk of time. So let's not waste any more time, and let's hop right into it. Ending me, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up guys, that guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have it on me, and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact. Ryomen Sukuna, the king of curses. Isn't he so glorious? So jacked, so juicy, if you will. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that amazing? Isn't that beautiful? Of course it is. That's why I'm so not surprised that that is born. But we need to tackle this early section because there's some things I do want to talk about in this early section. So let's just break down all the narration we get at first before we get into this little funny bit between Laru and Miguel. Satoru Gojo constructed a unique reverse curse technique circuit while in an awakened state resulting from 2 black flashes. He distributed the function and its burden to a part of his brain in a different way than usual, thereby recovering lost reverse curse technique output. In the same way, the King of Curses regenerated his arms to thrash the sorcerers of Jujutsu high. Or at least, that was what he intended. But Yuji Itadori drove 7 black flashes into the boundary between Megumi Fushiguro's and Ryomen Sukuna's souls, causing Ryomen Sukuna to miss his chance to recover reverse cursed technique. So that's interesting. The main reason I find it interesting is because you think that RCT would technically be less complex than a domain expansion, right? Because essentially the reason the whole narrator brings up the idea of brain circuits and unique functions and reconfiguration of how curse energy flows through the body is to set up for the later explanation of Sukuna using a domain expansion. Essentially, Sukuna reroutes his brain, which we'll talk about in a bit. But it's interesting that he couldn't do that for his reverse curse technique, because we know he still has it. Like, notably, Maki notes that he turns it off. He turns it on for a second with Kusakabe, then presumably turns it off again. And once again, he's likely, throughout the entire battle, as we've seen him so far, restructuring his brain patterns and, like, how his things flow. But it's interesting that he couldn't do that to restore his reverse curse technique. Second thing that's interesting, Yuji's landed 7 black flashes. Once again, still 7. Once again, confirms that in 257, that the black flash that we see, I believe the second one of that chapter, is actually Sukuna Black Flash, not a Yuji one. But, question of the day here, how come we haven't gotten another glimpse, a mention, a hint, a whiff, a taste of Megami? Like, don't get me wrong, I'm personally in the Megami should not make it in the series. Mainly because I want Yuji to suffer more. I love him. He's my favorite character in the series right now. But still, I want you to go through it just a little bit more. And I think ultimately him losing Megami would be absolutely perfect. But with that being the case, remember, Yuji got access to Megami, like, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 punches in. Like, think about it. He had the initial hit that Sukuna blocks, then Higurumi uses domain expansion, then afterwards Yuji does get a couple more hits in after the domain expansion, but then he gets blocked, grabbed, gets belly cleaved, then he whiffs with Executioner's Blade, then he has a slight interaction with Sukuna, but I don't think he actually manages to hit him in that slight interaction. Then we get to Yuta showing up, then we get a few more hits in domain, and then on the final hit, boom. And then we get the link between Megami and Itadori. But notably, despite landing 7 black flashes, we haven't even gotten a whiff, a taste, a hint, and notably, we don't necessarily get to see inside Itadori's head, nor does he speak in this chapter. So I'm not sure what the whole scenario with that is. Like, is there like communication going on right now between Itadori and Megami, or at least in the short moments they're in contact? I don't necessarily know, but it does seem strange that Sukuna's taken so many black flashes, and ultimately there's been no establishment of a proper connection between Yuji and Megami, despite the intense amount of damage that Sukuna's been taking from Yuji Itadori. Another thing that is interesting here, though, is the idea that Sukuna... It's weird. It's so 50-50-esque. But what is it? Is Sukuna holding back and doesn't need anything to really deal with the sorcerers? Or does he need the arms to deal with the sorcerers? Because at least from what the narrator implies here, and don't get me wrong, this is translated by our best friend, our pal, our amigo, the man we trust more than anything else in the world, John Ware. But still, with that being the case, it's interesting that Sukuna, who supposedly still has yet to go all out, apparently needs his arms back. Like, once again, I'm kind of mixed. I'm getting mixed signals from the story. You know what I'm talking about? Because, like, personally, I am perfectly fine with the idea that Sukuna is mostly vibing, like mostly just playing around, right? Because as he admits himself, oh, once this day is done, I got nothing to fight but the merger. Like there really ain't much else for me to box with. So I completely am fine with the whole idea of Sukuna just drastically holding back this entire time. It makes sense. Notably, if Sukuna was supposedly holding back against Satoru Gojo, obviously all these people who are not just this, in terms of this is Satoru Gojo and this is everyone else, not just this inferior, but realistically, Satoru Gojo's up here off the screen and everyone else is down here off the screen. Like, yeah, it makes absolute sense that Roman Sukuna would be holding back drastically. But with that being the case, is it just Sukuna being into it or something? Like, why would he then take so much damage when he's specifically trying to restore something? I don't know. And the reason I say take so much damage as if he, like, willingly did it is one, because we know he's kind of freaky like that. He does like getting hit. Don't say I'm wrong. You've seen the kind of things he did. You know what he's into. But with that being the case, since we know he's into getting hit, I wonder why he kept letting himself get hit by Yuji. Don't get me wrong, there's like a 50-50 debate going on in the whole community right now, depending on how they scale Yuji. A lot of people are half in the Yuji just barely made it in the top 10, now they had simple domain, and then there are people who are like, Yuji's third strongest in the verse. And then there's people in between who are like, he's stronger than this character, but he's weaker than this character. And he's matchup checked by this character, but doesn't get matchup checked by this character. And he, like there's a lot of debate going on around Yuji, but I think a solid, reasonable, understandable consensus that we can all come to is that if Sukuna, while missing a heart, and in dire straits to numerous hits from Yuji, was able to straight up perception blitz Maki and grab her by the face and slam her through a building. Realistically, Sukuna should not be hit by anything he doesn't want to be hit by. The only times he ever does get hit by something he doesn't want to be hit by is when he very explicitly is caught off guard. Like, I'm talking off guard. I'm talking like Maki literally appearing from the Shadow Realms of Yuta's domain expansion and stabbing him through the heart. I'm talking Maki literally appearing from the Shadow Realms after a black flash and taking his arm off. But like, Sukuna, if you really wanted your RCT back, which is what the narrator is implying, why did you take so many hits from me? Like, you know what it did. Like, notably, we know Sukuna isn't stupid. Like, like this isn't man. He's not dumb. But like, with that being the case, we know when something is dangerous to him, he will respond appropriately. He does not let himself actually get properly tagged by Executioner's Blade. We see this throughout the entire Higuruma fight. Bro, very explicitly, bob, weave, dodge, duck. Like, he does everything. He chops off his own hand just to see the Executioner's Blade pierce through it when he easily could have moved it. Like, he very specifically is careful about the Executioner's Blade. Once he knows Maki's there, read every single chapter where he knows Maki's there. He keeps eyes on her and very explicitly keeps knocking away, grabbing, redirecting the sword. Because he knows the sword is dangerous. So we know Sukuna, while being a freaky deaky fella, and will let himself get hit by a whole bunch of different stuff that he doesn't need to get hit by. At the same time, we know he's smart enough to not get hit. So like, Yuji, who, while you may be able to argue now, if you go with the highest interpretation of Yuji, that Yuji by scaling to the Sukuna, and the Sukuna should still drastically outscale everyone, except for Satoru Gojo, of course. Yuji should be third strongest character in the verse. I still don't think Sukuna should have been getting hit as much. So it is kind of weird that he got hit by so many black flashes when he realistically shouldn't be. But here's the implication, right? Does that mean now Urume's statement is invalid? The statement from 254, 255, the statement that Urume is like, hey, I'll be real with you. My glorious, juicy, heavenly, scrumdiddlyumptious, throbbing, pulsing, veiny, engorged, girthy king, not going all out at all. Is that now not true? Has he now started going all out? And if so, what does all out mean? Like, relative to Sukuna? Because, like, notably, he, after getting backshotted to oblivion by his own nephew/son, he's kind of just chilling up there, and then goes for the domain expansion. But like, Does this mean he's going all out? Presumably? I don't know. It's weird. It's just the vagueness behind what Sukuna is willing to get hit by versus what he's not willing to get hit by, the vagueness of what Sukuna wants to know and experiment with and is willing to take, and what he doesn't want to experiment with and take, and the potency of Yuji relative to the impotency of Yuji and the scaling of Yuji. Like, a lot of this stuff is dependent on Sukuna, but since we know so little about Sukuna's mindset, and we have basically no idea on how to determine when he's going all out, and depending on how you interpret certain interactions on whether or not he's going all out or not, it drastically changes the implication of the scaling. It is important, and I do think it's kind of wacky that we don't necessarily get it, but at the same time, I get why we don't. Like, narratively, it'd be bad to tell us everything about Sukuna's state, mentally and physically, when he's going into a battle like this, because obviously that would leave a whole lot of mystery, just basically untouched. Or, not necessarily untouched, actually the opposite problem, where it's overtouched and we have too much information. But the reason I say this, if you think that Sukuna is now going all out, then Yuji does get boosted a whole bunch. Unless you think the nerfs are that bad. Because if you think the nerfs are that bad, then Yuji may not shift much at all. Like, he has an anti-domain technique, sure, but does his speed scaling increase? We don't know. Does his power scaling increase? We don't know. Does anything increase? I don't know. Because of the vagueness. Do certain characters rise up or fall down based on how this Sukuna interacts with them? We don't know. Because the vagueness is there. But enough of the vagueness, enough of the hypotheticals. I just want to talk about that because this whole first page had me in a bit of a tizzy, I won't lie. We see that Laru and Miguel managed to dip Aruni far, far away. But ultimately, Miguel's like, Laru, you did well, my friend. Take care. It was an honor to work with you. Laru reveals that they're still, in fact, alive. And stays there and reminds Miguel, the heavens are that way. AKA, yeah, take me away. Don't just leave me. Don't leave my body. But ultimately, the main thing that occurs is that Miguel's like, wait a minute, and Sukuna activates domain expansion, Malevolent Shrine. And I love how the chapter describes it. Domain expansion, Malevolent Shrine. The king's domain returned to its master in a shower of black sparks. Ooh! So not just hope lies within the darkness, but the endless despair. Both are enshrined in the darkness of Black Flash. And speaking of the shrine has returned. And I'll admit, I think a lot of discourse, heck, I've started a little bit of discourse over this design of Malevolent Shrine, and I'll be real. Call me a hipster. Call me irrelevant, backwards thinking. Call me whatever you need to call me. But low kizzle? I actually like this design more. I don't know. I feel like it fits Sukuna better, right? Because while I like Malevolent Shrine, the original design of it, for its like orderly, yet still chaotic and definitely evil, definitely malevolent appearance to it, this like amalgamation, this fusion, the mess all over it, from what looks like blood splatter to Sukuna barely being held up by the two cupping fingers to the eyes pulsing with veins, all staring up in death. Like, it feels more unhinged. It feels more innately evil. This fits more into Sukuna's title, something that I'm not sure if we're going to address, but we're on break this week, so hallelujah, I do have time. But a big idea that I'm definitely wondering in terms of like addressment, but I feel like this domain fits more than the original, the idea of Sukuna as a disgraced one, as a fallen, as something that goes against the very rules of God. Like, legitimately, or at least how an angel interprets God in the JJK universe. This feels like that. This feels like it matches Sukuna more in terms of his mentality, his aggression, his conglomeration. Sukuna is ugly. He's not neat. He's not orderly, but he's perfection, and he gets the job done, just like this domain. I feel like this matches up to Sukuna even more, and it also helps that this domain does look so freaky, beaten up, busted, and down bad, because Sukuna obviously looks beaten up, broken, and down bad, because he is. So I feel like in this moment, and in general, I do actually kind of prefer this domain design. And a detail that I do like is that it's literally like spawning out of the ground. Like, notably, you see this front part that's almost like a front-facing mass. It's basically, someone put it perfectly, I believe it was Serena, she's called it like a sternum, essentially. A sternum of a ribcage, which I do like the detail of. And we even see the sternum is connected to a ribcage, which is connected to a spine. Once again, sort of ironically enough, despite not being supposedly anything to do with Chimera Shadow Garden, sort of following up on that vertebrae motif that was set up with Chimera Shadow Garden. And notably, this does make sense considering how this domain is born. Now, just quickly, you know what? I'll get to the page before I end up tackling the thing. I think it is neat. I think I'm glad that Sukuna got a domain back. There's one person who I wish was here, who I really wish was here, to see them go banned for, not banned for ban. They would undeniably lose the ban dog. But like, to see them engage in it, I wish there was one more person here. But with that being the case, we see that Ryuman Sukuna has managed to do it. Return his domain, the pinnacle of his jujutsu, to his divine, powerful, almighty, oiled up and juicy. I need to stop. I need to stop. I need to be stopped. Somebody's hit me with the Trunks Raw level 3. I've not touched fighters in a while. Please, if I get Trunks mirror match and get absolutely body back, that's gonna haunt me. But let that being the case, we see that the narrator declares a change in palm signs, a curse technique with a part of the brain unaffected by a limited void, and the operation of a barrier technique. Having survived the black flashes, Ryuman Sukuna generates the Malevolent Shrine without a decrease in the effective area or output through imprecise elements in an impromptu binding vow. Now, let's talk about... Well, actually, you know what? One more page. Nope, because we go into the flashback, so I won't one more page it. Let's talk about Plot Kuna, Daddy Kuna, Carrie Kuna, Baby Kuna, all this. Because, of course, while last chapter had everybody and their mama calling JJK peak fiction, top of the line, JJK's not falling off no more. Well, everyone's been going buku bonkers and crazy over 257. 258 seemed to take all the good work 257 did, took it out to the back of the barn like a horse with a broken leg, and hit it with a boom! And just seemingly knocked all of it under on duress. All of it away. It all seems like everyone's like, oh, JJK's falling off, it's whack, it's ugly, it's stupid, blah, 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 blah. And you know what? I can respect it. If only for the fact that I feel that way about another very popular manga, but a lot of people seem to think otherwise. But with that being the case, I'm actually perfectly fine with Sukuna getting his domain back. Number one, because it's long since been established, this was just an inevitability. Like, one way or another, he was going to get it back. This isn't like, oh no, what? It was stated that Sukuna was never going to be able to regain his... That was never stated. In fact, the opposite was. They were like, we are on a strict time limit. Yeah, like, we gotta go before he gets his domain back. And if he gets his domain back, we're cooked. That was the big thing that was set up, established, clean cut, and put on from the first people who showed up. Okay, Kashima didn't acknowledge it, but still, like, outside of Kashima, when Higuruma and Yuji showed up, that was entirely contingent on there being no domain, but it was coming back. When Yuta showed up, no domain, but it was coming back. When Maki showed up, no domain, but it was coming back. Like, they were worried extensively about the domain coming back. So, the domain coming back was set up. And makes sense considering the context so far. Notably, the whole idea of operating the brain differently, I'll admit that feels a little bit strange. This is one thing that I'll give is seemingly a slight deviation, a little bit strange. A change in palm size. That makes sense. I'm fine with that. Notably, a lot of jutsu is interpretation and how you interpret your terse technique and how you apply it. So I'm perfectly fine with Sukuna manifesting a different shrine through different hand signs. That's perfectly fine by me. But the thing here, a curse technique with a part of the brain unaffected by a limited void. So like, the thing is, the only reason I'm so iffy on this is because Sukuna in the Gojo fight very specifically points out, hey, buddy, prefrontal cortex. That's where your curse technique is stored, pal. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. So, the idea that you can kind of, like, what's implied here? That he just moved a piece of his curse technique somewhere else in his brain in order to apply the domain expansion? Like, I don't know. Does this imply that Gojo could have done that? Like, after the couple black flashes he landed, could he have just, like, re-altered his brain and opened up another domain? When you think about it, despite being under extreme duress and brain damage, Gojo was in much, much better shape than Sukuna is at this point. So that does feel a little bit weird, but the one reason I'll give it a pass is because we do have it long since established that curse techniques aren't necessarily just engraved in the brain. They're engraved all throughout the body. They're literally infused to them, essentially. And we know that even with, well, to be fair, we don't know whether, or we don't really know how Kenjaku's brain works, but it's been established that you can still use curse techniques while presumably swapping out a brain. So if the curse technique was all locally stored within inside the particular brain of an individual, then Kenjaku wouldn't be able to function, at least not in the way he does, because he wouldn't have access to the curse techniques. But we clearly see, unless you think like the mouth on the brain of Kenjaku, tasty. Like, unless you think the brain does that and like consumes the other brain, and then technically the curse technique on the prefrontal cortex is still marked there, then maybe question mark exclamation point. I'm still not sure. Like that's one bit I'm a little bit 50-50-ish on. But since we know Kenjaku presumably doesn't do that, he just swaps brains out, it appears that, as the series has consistently said, a curse technique is engraved into the flesh of an individual. And Sukuna having such a perfect understanding of his flesh, of the soul, and of cursed energy, him being able to redirect it is actually also fine to me. Once again, what Gege's doing, it's something I keep saying, and I do need to make a video just strictly talking about it, because I talk about it a lot in regards to JJK, but there are a lot of other mangaka that use it well. Otaka Shinobu Sensei uses it well in Magi and Sinbad, even currently in Orient. I think that, heck, in a way, Akira Toriyama, one of the goats, if not the goat of anime and manga as we know it, he also uses the uncertainty principle in a very good way. But this is once again an application of the uncertainty principle. You lay out something, you leave it there. The idea that curse techniques are engraved into the whole flesh and soul of the individual, not simply just the brain. You establish that there are a major part of a brain, or there is a major part of the brain that is tied to the curse technique, but you make sure it's not exclusive. Of course, we see Gojo and Sukuna, after taking brain damage, keep using their techniques, which implies that there are multiple places for the techniques to be used from. Once again, that implication, laying that out and setting a ground rule, does allow for loopholes like this, where the path of cursed energy flow is redirected. So I don't actually have an issue with that. And the other thing that I tend to not have an issue with is the idea that Sukuna would resort to this. Because that's the last thing I've seen. A lot of people are, once again, sort of doubling down on Urube's the Glock or the Guac, regardless of what you call it. They are doubling down on the slop and be like, well, Sukuna, why would he resort to this if he truly is this all-powerful, all-juicy, all-glorious, thick, scrundly, yumptious, four-legged, four-armed, regardless. A lot of people are wondering, why does he need to do this? What's going on? What's going crazy? But, like, to be fair, it's the simplest way to do it at this time, and notably his output is probably so low. Like, notably, we don't even get to see him try and fight, basically, until he's inside his own domain expansion. So, like, it's presumable that his output is, like, it's slumped. So I can understand why, especially when dealing with someone like Yuji, who's only going to keep lowering it, making it even worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and possibly wake up Megami, which could be an issue, considering the moment Megami wakes up, Sukuna will really have output issues, and possibly even have body issues if Megami just goes, and like just launches, projectile launches every single finger inside of him, if that's how that works. I can completely understand why Sukuna went for a domain expansion here. Also, it's just for the flex, because why not? Like, that's the last reason. It's much more petty and, like, less established in the narrative than other reasons. But, hey, to be fair, Sukuna is known to be a pretty, how do I put this? Sukuna is known to be a pretty fun guy. He's known to be a pretty fun guy in the grand scheme of things. So I think Mr. Pretty Fun Guy over here would not necessarily knock the idea of, I don't know, whipping out a domain just to take care of some issues, just some light work. Sukuna, he's a busy man. He expects a certain bit of respect to him, and ultimately that respect is being challenged. So it makes perfect sense to me that Sukuna would go down the domain route. So those are the general critiques I've seen about the domain. He wouldn't use it in character. He's too crazy in terms of explanation wise, and it doesn't make sense. There are all of them. I'll get to something soon, though. There is something soon that's weird that was pointed out to me by a commenter on a previous video that kind of has me losing my mind as I think about it. But, with it being the case, we see that the birds, they did their job. Oh, no. 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 No, not the birds. Not the bird. But with that being the case, bird squad aside, the bird boys aside, we cut back in time. Back to reality, back in time, back to my sanity. And we see that essentially everyone's doing more prep during this 1 month time skip. Hikari brings up the idea. This will require English. This will require reverse curse technique or domain countermeasures. And still, I do love that Maki's like, I know you didn't just say that while I was here. Really? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, notably, we do know you can, like, store symbol domains and things, but, like, yeah, reasonably, it would be better to just have a symbol domain user with her. We'll talk about said symbol domain user, or the person with the anti-domain counter soon enough, because I was not familiar with their game. But with that being the case, he's like, Hari's like, hey, you and I both know I was not talking about you. Yo, whack behind, ugly build, burnt behind, no curse energy, ham it. Like, we know that Hikari was about to go absolutely buku bonkers. Like, I'm about to go absolutely buku bonkers and take a sip. Did you drink your water today? Drink some water. It really helps the body. But with that being the case, we see that... Well, actually, no. There's an interesting implication here. Hikari, buddy. What do you mean by that? Like, brother, you don't really have... Well, you know what? The thing is, though, I guess they're acting under the assumption that Sukuna has a closed barrier domain, I guess. It's like, Hikari, legally speaking, bro, you don't have an anti-domain countermeasure. And you only have RCT for 4 minutes and 11 seconds. So, like, you pop domain against Sukuna, and Malevolent Shrine is still just chilling. Doing his darn thing. So, like, I don't know. Unless you had some sort of small ball design, bro. No, but unless you had some sort of small ball design, bro, you need to learn them, or that RCT and those anti-domain countermeasures, too. But, with it being the case, we see that Choso's like, hey, he hits the... Like, you almost listen to me right now. And he explains that ultimately Yuji and him will be fine. They'll manage reverse curse technique relatively quickly, too. And we see that Yuji's like, French? Oui, baguette? Like, he's straight up confused. And Choso explains, Yoni, Hakari, Akotsu. I've always wondered something. When issuing reverse curse technique or using it on the throat. Wait, what? I've always wondered something. When we're using reverse curse technique to regenerate flesh, how do you compensate for lost blood? Which is an interesting point, considering we know a big thing about limb growth is that, like, there's a bunch of juice pumping through you. There's so many things that I said in this review already that are pause-worthy. But we're going to keep playing that gosh darn tape. We see that Choso asked that question, and we get 3 beautiful answers from all the individuals. Hikari's like, dog, I literally can't even really do RCT for real. I'm just a punching king merchant who does literally 0 damage. Dog, I don't know. It's automatically. I don't really be thinking like that. And even the coach is like, hey, I'll be honest. I'm kind of the previous main character of the previous series, the prequel series, Jujutsu Kaisen, the movie guy. So, I'm built different. I have no idea either. I just do it all on instinct. I do love that the 2 prodigies are purely instinctual based. They're like, we don't know how to teach it. We just be doing it, though. So, it worked. But we see that Shoko, the actual doctor in the room, finally comes up with an answer. And she goes on to say, you convert cursed energy into blood. Many sorcerers use reverse curse technique on themselves, but can't heal others. One reason is the difference in application. Because... What? My brain just lagged so hard. I don't know. I was only reading a sentence. But because the receiver rejects it. They may be rejecting the healer's cursed energy. Or the cursed energy may fail to respond to conversion. That's why my treatment is more suitable on is more effective on some people than others. So essentially, Shoko goes in to rationalize and explain the entire, not necessarily paradox or issue, but basically, I'd say the main issue behind healing in terms of utilizing RCT for other people, which is the idea that they can just say no. And by they, I literally mean like their flesh could just say no. Like they just don't like you. It can happen. So it is interesting to see that Shoko would have had to dealt with that. I wish we could have seen some more of that. That's like an interesting dynamic. Someone who was literally on the verge of ending. Ooh, I can see why we didn't see that though. Never mind. I was about to say it could have gone crazy to see someone like on the verge of losing their life, and Shoko comes in to try and heal them, but their body's like, nah, I don't think I will, and they just immediately and just vanish out of it. That would be crazy. But of course, we're in Kingdom Hearts. Bodies never simply just vanish. That's an interesting thing though. I wonder if that's ever going to come into play. The idea that hypothetically Shoko's healing could not work on somebody, but that's interesting. The healing is more effective on some than it is on others. So, intriguing. Obviously, the main question this raises is what's up with him right now? Like, what's up with Yuta Okkotsu right now? Like, is he slowly stitching himself back together? Like, we know he was working on that, or has been working on that ever since 251, when he got halved. But now the question is Shoko helping with that? Is she not? Would Yuta's own body, which has a specific type of cursed energy, plus Rika, who would probably, even if not intentionally, accidentally get in the way, does the possibility of even healing Yuta Okkotsu through Shoko seem logistical? Because if not, it could explain why Yuta's taking a while to come back to the battlefield. Even with him getting like cleanly cut in half. Well, he's cut in half, so obviously it'd take a while to mend everything that's sliced apart down there. Like, he got hit in the dead center, too. Like, there's a lot of... It's weird to think about, because we always see our abdomen as, like, one solid thing, with, like, our ribs, and then our chest, and then bada bing, bada boom, our stomach. But, like, your intestines, your stomach... Like, he got hit on a weird angle, too. So, like, a lot of his stuff is weirdly cut. So I understand why he's taking a while to come back. But I think the idea that rejection and a lack of coherency is gonna play a role somehow. I'm not sure how big a role it's gonna play, but I think it's gonna explain like why Yuta isn't back yet or why certain characters aren't back. But another thing that comes from this is they may be rejecting the healer's cursed energy, or cursed energy may fail to respond to conversion. So that's why my tree is more effective on some than others. So yeah, essentially anyone who's been taken back by Shoko isn't guaranteed to come back, which is nice. I do think that is solid. I do think that means Higuruma is gone. I know the Higuruma hoppers have been hoping, but like, I think that puts it in coffee. But with that being the case, we see that Yuji... well, we don't get an explanation from Yuji. We get an explanation from Choso about Yuji's buff. Yuji's seemingly insane and infinite amounts of cursed energy. Yuta's... Well, no, not Yuta's, but Yuji's Yuta-like quality with insane amounts of RCT, cursed energy, all that. As Choso explains, I suspected as much. My body can convert cursed energy into blood. Integrating my little brothers should allow Yuji to do this alongside with some kind of curse technique. And that's not all. I think we can cover our technical parts with our constitution, so we don't experience the same massive curse energy consumption, which is a problem with reverse curse technique. So, this, once again, it acts as a big clear-up, because admittedly, it's been a point that's kind of been underlying in the Yuji discussion. A lot of Yuji's discussion in terms of his power and his ranking and stuff like that. While his stamina is a big thing, it's not necessarily the biggest. We're always talking about like how hard can he hit, who's he hitting hard, how much does the soul damage do. Like, we're looking at those kind of semantics. But a big thing that I pointed out, especially recently considering how much Yuji has been doing it, his healing, his regeneration, his cursed energy pool, it seemed basically bottomless. Remember, Yuta Okkotsu, Mr. Boundless Cursed Energy himself, Mr. I have the highest cursed energy amount in the series, second only to Sukuna, even greater than Satoru Gojo, was bottoming it. Well, to be fair, it wasn't relatively quickly. There was a whole day beforehand. But still, he took way less damage than Yuta did before he bottomed out. Yet Yuji was somehow going. And this explains it. Yuji got the same properties that Choso did. And while Yuji not only probably does have an insane cursed energy pool, but with that level of efficiency that would come from solely using cursed energy, technically, Yuji hasn't really had to use any RCT. Because remember, RCT is multiplication. Essentially, you're taking up twice the amount of cursed energy to do something basic with RCT. But since Yuji just needs to use cursed energy, say he has 100 cursed energy, right? And let's say it takes 5 cursed energy to heal himself. And let's say it takes 5 cursed energy for another person to heal themselves. For Yuta to heal himself, he'd have to multiply 5 by 5. He would have to do curse energy of 5 by curse energy of 5 and burn 25 to get RCT to heal himself. Meanwhile, Yuji's just been burning that 5, burning that 5, burning that 5. So that explains his insane amounts of stamina. And that's a really big buff. Honestly, him getting that is really, really nice, because it allows for an efficiency factor that a lot of the other characters in the series can't really benefit from. Like, the only other RCT users that can directly benefit from RCT as well as they can, to the point where it isn't like an active drawback most of the time, is realistically Hikari, Sukuna, and Gojo. Gojo because of the 6 eyes, Sukuna because of insane efficiency, and Hikari because he literally has infinite amounts of cursed energy. So adding Yuji to that list, beautiful. And notably, his seems to be even better than Choso. Like, we've seen Choso do that before. We've seen him just pour out a whole river of juice. But even his recovery seems to take a lot longer than Yuji. Yuji had limbs torn apart. We're going to see him get a limb torn off this chapter. He had his belly torn apart, his chest torn apart. But notably, he recovers mostly fine very, very quickly, showing that his ability to recover through utilization of cursed energy as an application for healing through blood manipulation is really, really high level. Like, it still is big that he got that good in a month. And we see that Shoko realizes, oh, that means you two have a lower hurdle to clear in acquiring reverse curse technique. Because technically, they don't have to require it. And notably, I'm trying to think, generally speaking, I'm not sure what, unless blood manipulation would allow you to manipulate somebody else's blood, I'm not sure what applying RCT to blood manipulation would really do. I'd have to make like a whole video thinking about that. I'll do that. I've had a series in mind for a while now. I'll probably implement that soon, since we're nearing the end of the series. There are a couple characters I do want to cover in that series, but Yuji would be one of them. But one of the things that would be a part of that series is like the reverse curse technique application of a certain technique. I'm not sure what blood manipulation would really do if you reversed it. It's a little strange. So fueling it with RCT wouldn't really do too much. And while I do think inverting cleave and dismantle could be interesting, I've talked about what that could be in a domain expansion format before, and I have more ideas now, I still ultimately think it wouldn't be as good as regular cleave or as regular dismantle in terms of an offensive capability, especially considering Yuji wouldn't apply it to a domain. So realistically, them not even learning RCT or not needing to apply it is actually even better. Not only does that save them time, but also they just don't need it. Like, it wouldn't do anything for them. If there is one thing, though, the fact that Yuji at least hasn't been confirmed to be using Flowing Red Scale Stack at all up to this point is weird. Just a little weird. I get why he can't use it fully, because once again, Yuji... But that's the weird thing, though. That's the funny thing, though. Before, Kamo was the better teacher for Yuji in terms of blood manipulation. That was established way back when, before it was even confirmed, at least hardline confirmed, that Yuji had blood manipulation. And I thought that was because Yuji, once again, was still innately human. He consumed his brothers, but he didn't get a body like Choso's. But Choso here confirms that he did. So, like, why wouldn't Yuji be, like, going absolutely buku bonkers with blood? Like, if he still has the exact same type of body of Choso from assuming the rest of the DPWs, I'm wondering why he isn't flooding the entire battlefield with himself. Why he isn't consistent. Well, I get why he can't use piercing blood, because he literally just didn't figure out convergence. It was just too hard for him to do. But, like, Flowing Red Scale Stack, why are you not... If you can't maintain it consistently because he's still just a bit too human, like, let's say, since Choso is purely incarnated, he's not necessarily adding anything onto himself. He was just made this way. Maybe Yuji can't do that, but at least Flowing Red Scale Stack. At least buff your perception. At least do something like that. He's been pretty much running it purely in base, when we know he has a higher state that he could be using with the technique that we know he has. So that still is a little bit weird, especially considering it's confirmed he has Choso's constitution, but I mean, 50-50, we're probably still saving that. I presume that's like the next step. If we're going to have Sukuna keep evolving and we're going to have Yuji keep evolving, the next thing to have him evolve into is the Flowing Red Scale Stack. So I'm fine with it. It just is a little funky to me, considering, like, Yuji, you need all the power you can get, bucko. But with that being the case, we see that ultimately it's a little I don't get, you know, once again, I do think reverse curse technique does have a role to play with Yuji and Choso regardless. Well, I guess here's the thing. Technically, they don't need it, because they can just replace their body parts and blood and stuff like that with blood manipulation. But I guess, yeah, the restructuring of limbs and stuff like that can't be done solely through blood. Blood manipulation can help guide them. So that's why they still end up using someone with RCT in replacement training, which is beard stroking. Once again, I'm not sure where the line is drawn between what's Yuji actually using RCT and what's Yuji just repairing himself with blood manipulation. Is it like a two-step process, right? Where Yuji will replace a lot of whatever blood he's lost and then formulate and coagulate that blood into the shape of a limb, for example, or at least the way that limb's supposed to be structured, and then, like, seal the cracks off, like, say, seal his skin and leg with RCT? Or does he use RCT, but because he's using it like through blood manipulation, he doesn't technically use RCT. Like the efficiency versus inefficiency stuff gets weird because I'm not exactly sure how they end up healing, because it's confirmed that he does go on to learn real RCT, and the steam that comes off of them also is meant to be an implication of RCT, at least in my opinion. But we see that Yuji's like soul swap or replacement trading, and we get the explanation for why Uyui. I think I'm gonna make a ranking video, but I think he's gotta be fourth most important character so far. I think it literally goes, maybe not goes, but like the top three have to be Gojo, Yuta, and really is he? I mean, Maki kind of, but then in terms of like overall, like in terms of damage, Yuta's still up there, and in terms of facilitation, yeah, I gotta give top three Gojo, Yuta, and Yuji. But I think our fourth man, it ain't Maki. It ain't Hikari. It ain't Kusaka. It ain't none. It has to be Uyui. Because it's revealed. And you know what? I'll finally do it. But then again, here's the thing. Is it... Hold on. I'm going to do something that I probably shouldn't do. But I'm going to look up how to pronounce his name. Because the reason I say Uyui isn't just because I don't want to say Wee Wee. Like, you know the kind of jokes I make. Like come on. Like, you think I'm really scared? You know how many jokes I would be able to make if I just called him Wee Wee? But like, isn't Wee Wee French? And like, Wee Wee is in O-U-I? Uyui's name is U-I-U-I. But let me see. Ui, name. Pronunciation. Let me see. I'm on the tube right now. I'm trying to see if I can get this down. Oh, let me see. No. Let me just see. Let me just do the... Oh, but then again, will I get struck for the audio on that? I'm scared. I'm gonna go to the Googler. I'm gonna go to the Googler directly and just go Ui definition, and then we'll have the Googler read it out, because then I'll try to pronounce it properly. Because I see discourse in the comments. No, that's a UI. I don't want UI for user interface. UI. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with Ui because if I already have a low standard of quality for jokes, so like if I started calling him Wee Wee, you know what would happen. But with that being the case, Wee Wee, explain. This is what happens every single time I say I'm going to change the name pronunciation. I'll flip back and forth now. I've cast the curse on myself. But we see that Wee Wee, yeah, whatever comes out is what comes out. I'm going to say a lot about what... Let me stop. But my curse technique is spatial transference of targets. If you're with me, I can jump us to places that I've marked. So, that does confirm why Uyui has been able to transport anywhere and everywhere, seemingly out of nowhere. Because it's likely that he's marked literally every single person who showed up to the battlefield today. Which is still very, very impressive. The amount of curse energy that boy must have is buku bonkers. Unless he's getting fueled by somebody else, but like... Unless he's getting fueled by Rika. I'm not sure where he's getting that extra curse energy from. So he's been jumping and leaping and tagging and moving and bobbing and weaving over pretty large distances too. Unless you think, because I've seen mixed interpretations on this, unless you think Yuta straight ran all the way to the Lake Gosho colony and ran all the way back, or talk about ran all the way back to the Gosho colony, or no, ran all the way to the Gosho colony, then Uyui teleported them there. Like they found where Kenjaku was, and then like teleported the distance. Shinjuku and Lake Gosho. Let me see. What's the distance? Distance between Lake Gosho and Shinjuku. God, yeah, they're literally like halfway across the nation from each other. Like Gosho Lake and Shinjuku City are like nowhere near each other. So unless you think Yuta's just that fast and he was like straight, then Uyui teleported them there and back. And he had to, at least, unless you think Yuta was in the bushes the entire time. Like, I know we call him the bush camper, but like, unless you think Mr. Akotsu was just straight watching the entire Teddy and Takaba fight, then Uyui had to teleport Takaba there, teleport back to get Yuta, teleport Yuta there again, and then teleport Yuta back with Takaba's body. Once again, we don't know where Takaba is. We don't know his condition. Like, I'm kind of... He may have cooked himself. I'm still, like, leaning into Takaba cooking himself, because we have not got a mention for bro. But, still, with that being the case, that has to consume... You would think that would consume a decent amount of cursed energy. Plus all the teleporting he's been doing close range from wherever they are, wherever they were watching the fight, to where the fight's taking place in Shinjuku. So, overall, Uyui, crazy amounts of cursed energy, and a crazy ability. But we see not just that, he explains that, ultimately... You know what, let me just read it, because I still love this interaction. Think of my target as a soul in a body, or like a box with something inside. The box is like someone else's birthday present. You can't take out what's inside just because you can feel it. You're already lost. Hey, Hikari! I love the memes that Hikari's just like dumb because his grades are so low. But like, Hikari, of all the people to talk, you ain't one of them. But we see Uyui explains, but if you can have that person's permission, that's how I switch the souls of people I've marked. And Yuji immediately goes, what? Which is admittedly, I do think it's a decent enough explanation though. I mean, birthday present gets a little bit too specific, but it's just like boxes. People are boxes. Just like, in a way that I'd say, you are not your feet, but you are. And you are not your hands, but you are. You are a very specific conglomerate of electrical signals firing in your brain. Like, you can function, for the most part, if you do lose a leg, an arm, a torso. Okay, maybe not a torso. I don't think we've had talking heads. But like, you can function pretty well with missing massive swaths of what our flesh is. But you, the individual, exists within your brain. Somehow. Have we figured out consciousness? I'm still not sure if that's one of the things we haven't figured out. But like, you can exist up to a certain point. And with that being the case, it's similar for Uyui. Like, he can essentially target you, but in what our case would be consciousness, in their case it's the soul, and just swap them. Through spatial transference is interesting though. It goes to show how deeply curse techniques and curse energy are tied down to the soul level, because it's not even implied that this is like a special, well, it's a special application of this technique, obviously, but it's not implied that this is like the RCT variation of it or anything. No, this is just something Uyui can do. It's like, question, bro, how did you figure this out? Like, were you just experimenting one day? Whose souls did you first swap? Remember, Uyui's like 12? Like, how old is... Do we even know how old bro is? Like, we know it's old enough. Well, regardless, Uyui and Mei's weird. But like, we know it's extra weird because Uyui's a boy. How old? We have no idea. There's no age for him. But essentially, bro is like really young. How did you figure that out? But with it being the case, Uyui has been the one responsible for the soul swap training. And the soul swap training is what allowed for everyone to get so much stronger. And if I had to take a guess, Yuta Okotu will swap with a bunch of people here. Because everyone got bulkier. And out of all of our cast and crew who would actually benefit from any soul swap training, who's our bulkiest character in base? Who do you think it is? It's Yuta Okotu. So presumably his level of reinforcement is probably what a lot of them got to experience, and that's why Yuta says, oh yeah, we cheated, bruh. We cheated. And that could even hypothetically explain why Yuta seems so much strangely physically stronger. Like, once again, Yuta, the guy who's weak, you know, he tore out Sukuna's tongue with his bare hands, chopped off his arms with his blades, was able to match Sukuna on occasion. Like, legitimately, Yuta was freakishly strong. And that could explain it if he swapped souls with Itadori Yuji and felt that body. Because notably, it gets explained that ultimately Itadori's kind of experienced something like this before. As he says, why are you so surprised? Itadori goes on to say, I fought a cursed spirit named Mahito. Apparently, he used his curse technique to change the shape of a soul, so the flesh also changed shape. So wouldn't switching souls also affect the bodies? Which is a good point. But once again, that implies a direct correlation. But Uyui clarifies, oh, don't worry. I can switch boxes without opening them. And unless you open them, no one knows they've changed. And that's the interesting part. So, I'm leaning, except for Maki and Toji. I said it before and I'll say it again. Except for Maki and Toji, I think Kenny was spitting straight lies. Because, well, it seems like... How do I put this? What's a good example of this? Here. Do I have two of you? Yes, I do. For all my youth out there, this is perfect. Beyblades and the metal. You know how things magnetize to each other, right? So, right now, I'm not holding this little metal piece. I'm not holding it at all. But it's being connected to by a certain force, right? And ultimately, depending on how this gets manipulated, Hold on, let me see if I can get one that actually pop open. Here, I'll use Manga. It's been a while. I need to replay Beyblade for the DS. I forget if this is your name Manga? But essentially, right now, this is the body. This would be the soul. The connection, okay, the magnet isn't strong enough. But the connection here, essentially, view it like this. This is the soul, this is the body. Mahito would bypass the body to manipulate the soul. The soul, through the magnetic connection, would end up manipulating the shape of the body, which would cause the body to change form, as Mahito willed it, based on the interaction. So, essentially, the soul and the body are still two separate things, contrary to Kenjaku's belief. But it appears that lingering fragments of the soul can be left with, tampered with, or manipulated with without directly affecting the body. Which means that Mahito's interpretation that the soul comes before the body makes sense, except there's that unspoken connection, that magnetic force that links the two together. Uyui can interact with the soul and leave the body be, essentially tricking the body, which is interesting. It makes the nature of souls in JJK a bit weirder, I'll admit, but hey, I mean, the main reason I say it makes it weirder is because it implies that souls can be interacted with, like, on a spatial dimension, which is more mathematical than, like, how we view souls in our world, depending on, like, how you view souls. And ultimately, it makes JJK souls, like, susceptible to a lot more weird things. Like, if you have spatial manipulation, you can affect souls, which is kind of crazy. But with that being the case, Uyui is allowing them to bypass that rule. And I do think this is mainly implemented not just to complicate souls as a concept more in JJK, but it's also mainly specifically so Gege can, like, leap over that hurdle before anyone gets to him on it, like clarifying that, oh, don't worry, the soul, in spite of being changed, will not impact the body. That's important. That's important. That's getting out of the way of it before someone brought it up. Because, you know, if that wasn't mentioned here, if Yuji didn't bring up Mahito, people would immediately question Mahito, which is nice. And we see that Kusakabe actually explains, Itadori, you're developing rapidly as a sorcerer. Do you know why that is? And Itadori's like, huh, well, you know, it's because I'm here, right? Because of Sukuna. Which immediately I do find hilarious that this instantly kills Yuji's mood. He's like, really? Because of that guy. But Kusakabe explains, when people engage in sports, they repeat the same motions until the body remembers. Sukuna possessed your body using Jujutsu, and your body remembers the super special grade curse techniques. So you pick them up and develop them incredibly fast. We're going to do the same thing through replacement training. First, with me. I'm going to teach you the basics of my cursed energy manipulation and barrier techniques by simple domain. And ultimately, we're going to have you swap with somebody else to help you learn RCT. And we see, this is an interesting, I don't know why this was even introduced, but I guess maybe that's something that was established in, like, extra materials or earlier on in the manga, I don't remember. Because Akari brings up the idea that, isn't there a binding vow limiting new shadow style to... Isn't there a binding vow limiting it to new shadow style? And I don't know. Who's the binding vow on? By, like, Kusakabe? I don't know. Like, I don't know what this means. It's a weird little detail, but I'm assuming it'll come back later or just never be mentioned again. But the idea that there's a binding vow set up on it? By who? By where? Like, what happens if someone just uses it without Mei apparently taking care of it? Because she says she handled it with a smile and a heart emoji, but, like, what does that mean? I don't know. But ultimately, even Akari's confused. Like, why so happy? Like, what, did she get paid for it somehow? I have no idea. Is she the reason this is binding vow? I have no clue. But we see that Uyui says, for 1 month, there's a limit of 2 times per person. So, give the combination some serious thought. So that also clarifies something. I made the mistake of assuming Uyui can only do it twice per month. No, when Yuta said we cheated, he literally means we cheated. As in everyone, like, was switching souls, hopping bodies, going crazy with it. So that's interesting. Everybody got the benefits of it. Uyui's broken. I'll admit, obviously this doesn't seem to have any sort of complex implications. Like, it's implied here that you do need consent. If someone just says no to Uyui, he can't just randomly swap their souls. And obviously, something like this clearly wouldn't work with Maki and Toji. We've seen how their souls are able to basically override anything. Like, basically, even reincarnation, their souls just say no to. And, like, their body says no to that. And then, like, reincarnates their soul. So, if anything, Maki and Toji are the idea that Kenjaku's talking about, where the body and the soul are one. But still, that's very, very good. If we were to ever get stronger and could, like, forcefully swap souls, could go crazy. But an idea that I do like is the whole muscle memory idea that Kusakabe brings up. That Itadori, by simply being wielded by Sukuna, kind of got to experience that. Meaning every single thing Sukuna did was indirectly feeding Yuji. Just like how every single thing Yuji did was indirectly feeding Sukuna. Remember, the whole reason Sukuna, well, admittedly, Kenny told him again anyway, but one of the main reasons Sukuna knew about the weakness to Unlimited Void, as long as you stay in contact with Gojo, it doesn't work, is because he was there. He was listening. He was gathering data for the fight with Satoru Gojo. Every single bit of information that Sukuna knows about Megami and the 10 Shadows technique, that was all because of the time he spent with Yuji. So all that information gathering that Sukuna got, Yuji indirectly got power growth and power gathering from Sukuna, which is nice. I was admittedly a bit hesitant with this at first because I thought it kind of like, it felt a little redundant. Like, okay, so he was not only born with a finger, but Sukuna took over his body and that was extra. And also he's actually Sukuna's kid, kind of, sort of, in the laws of cursed energy. Like, I felt like we were just tripling down when really we didn't even need to double down. But I'd like it more now because I like the idea of muscle memory. And the idea that Yuji legit just got more gains by being used. And how it sort of plays into the dynamic of Yuji and Sukuna, where both ended up using each other. Yuji subconsciously, Sukuna actively. And that subconscious growth for Yuji is now being made manifest, just as the active growth for Sukuna was made passive in the Gojo fight. Really good stuff. But with it being the case, we cut back to reality. Up there goes gravity. And we see that Yuji Itadori has new shadow style, Simple Domain. And I'll talk about something in a little bit. But Yuji is still locked in. Like I said, outside of this flashback, he does not speak. This man has nowhere... Well, actually, no. We do get a little insight to his head. Because this is it. But with that being the case, he uses new shadow style, Simple Domain. And we see Sukuna's domain in pure action. I love the way it's portrayed here. I love how powerful yet transcendental and broken it looks. Not broken in the sense that it's just like actually cracked and crazy, but no, literally broken. This is that conglomerate. This is that thing from the start of the chapter. But ultimately, it's like rising up and being torn away from the ground. The ground itself is rising in concert with it. You literally see the eyes of the massive conglomerate start to like bleed and pour because it's an incomplete domain. As Yuji notes, it looks like an incomplete domain. There's some kind of hole. I've got to withstand this. And this is a detail that I like. A lot of people were looking for Megami to complete Chimera Shadow Garden by utilizing the whole incomplete domain property by having it just be open barriered. Like how, for the longest time, we were saying, oh, well, Kenny and Sukuna's domains have no barrier, but it's actually open barriered. That seemed to be Megami's next step, right? Like, if he was never going to the barrier techniques, just don't use it. Or, like, have it be open. Let it be a little bit more loosely structured. But Sukuna ended up doing the opposite. While he already had the highest mastery of domain expansion, he went backwards. He used the incomplete domain style that Megami did. And by proxy, we got this tying all the way back to what was said about Maki and her immunity, very specifically when her immunity to domains was mentioned for the first time. The only kind of domains that would trap Maki are ones that she actively consents to, or those that use a physical space as a barrier, not a cursed energy veil. So this incomplete domain is just like Megami's, but of still, obviously, to a higher level. Considering there's no, like, hard structure Sukuna's using for a top or a bottom, like Megami used the Gymnasium. But still, I like that detail. I like the callback, the little flip that Sukuna had to work backwards with it. Oh, because of a certain Magi's in it. Like, notably, it's implied at least... Hold on, we'll get to it. Because the narrator does go on an explanation. Let me hit it real quick. Yuji Itadori is right. Ultimately, even with his back against the wall, Ryomen Sukuna isn't lowering the difficulty of his barrier technique. As in Shibuya, he isn't using a barrier to divide the effective range and the outside world. Covering the domain with the barrier's external shell provides an escape route. The binding vow disappears, effective range shrinks, and the domain specifications change, and the guaranteed hit activates within the manifested landscape of mental imagery. So, this is just talking about how basic domains work. Covering the domain with an essential barrier, which is what Sukuna does not want to do. Why? Because it makes it impossible to notice Maki Zenin, who has no cursed energy. So, it's implied, at least to me, because Because remember, the main threat is Yuji, but everyone else was also likely in range. And Sukuna, we know he could probably just make a really big barrier if he really wanted to. He very specifically went with an incomplete domain route because of Maki. He was like, my favorite thing about that, he just knew. Like, he just took the guess. He took the leap of faith. Because realistically, it probably would have been less complex and taken less binding vows to go the more generic route of using a complete domain with a shell around it. The binding vow that's born of the open barrier domain is more complex. It's why we don't see any other characters except for Sukuna and Kenny, the two most experienced sorcerers in the series, use it. But because Maki has proved herself as such a threat with SSK, he knows he cannot let her roam free. He knows for a fact, like, no. You're an issue. So he very specifically compromised the integrity of his domain. Likely, one of the binding vows was made to give it that time limit, all because of Maki. And I know you're all going to be like, well, Pencil, he only gave that credit to Maki because she's a sneak merchant who would take the opportunity to remove Sukuna's hands whenever she got the chance. And to that I say, you're absolutely correct. I don't care, though. Still a Maki W. It's a Maki L, but a Maki W, if you know what I'm talking about. Other thing, how did I not notice it, dog? Bro really said, hold on, let me double check. Murio Kurisu. Gojo Satoru domain expansion. Yeah, let me just double check, bro. Is that same? Because I see people say it's the same. I think that's that same John right there. Yeah, it is. I think it is. I think that's that same John right there. Hold on. Pointer finger in front, middle finger wrapped around. No, if that ain't petty in the best way possible. Bro really said, hey, yo, Sensei tried to hit me with this one. Let me remind y'all something real. Bro really took Unlimited Void. He really said, hey, I got something for y'all. Y'all miss y'all Sensei, right? Y'all miss y'all Gojo Santo right here. I got Gojo Santo at home. And whipped out Malevolent Void, bro. Oh, that's clean. I'm sad that went over my head. Like, I did 3 whole videos on it, and it went over my head every single time. I love that detail. That in order to compensate, because that's one of the biggest things. Not way back when, but I think like a month or 2 ago, I did a video comparing Malevolent Shrine and Limited Void. And of course, I gave it to Malevolent Shrine in the end, because it's just a better domain in terms of overall status. But one of the things I gave Unlimited Void was the fact that it could be cast with one hand, which was an innate weakness of Malevolent Shrine. It's why I was so adamant about if Gojo just teleported in, immediately Unlimited Void Sukuna, when Sukuna was missing his arm around the start of the fight, he would have won. But Sukuna knows that too, and he compensated for it by altering the hand side and taking Gojo's hand side to do it. The disrespect, but the respect at the same time. Beautiful, crazy, boogamongers. I love it though. I love it. That it's not even a level of petty, it's a level of respect and disrespect. Taking another man's technique, another man's hand sign, another man's style for yourself when your own style can't really work no more. I see you, Sukuna. I see you. You slide on. You fiend. I see you, Sukuna. I respect it though. I respect it. You know what? As a person who plays fighting games, stealing tech is common. You see somebody else do it, you figure that tech is better than yours, you implement that bad boy, no problem. Like, a friend of mine also plays Trunks. Bro hit me with this one Trunks combo, and I was like, what in the... Hold on, bro. Wait a minute. How'd you do that? And then I watched him do it again, and I lost that match, and then I immediately stole the tech. so like, I can't even knock Sukuna for tech stealing. Hey, it'd be like that when it be like that. Once again, sorcery ain't no game or no gamble. There ain't no rules, except there are. But those rules, you gotta play with them. And playing with the rules like this to whip out Malevolent Shrine one-handed by stealing a little... he's so clean with it. I love that. But, that aside, we see that ultimately, Sukuna, he did this with some caveats. He's not currently capable. Sukuna is currently incapable of maintaining this high-level domain. It's simply impossible for him to do. So he only has 99 seconds, a little over a minute and a half, to hold on to this domain, to tear it to shreds. But that is likely one of the binding vows. The binding vows likely have to deal with the hand signs, the potency of the domain, and the amount of time it can appear for. And the differences all come from that. And we see while Yuji's able to withstand it, ultimately, after 99 seconds, Malevolent Shrine will crumble. So, there's two interesting things here. Number one, I believe the 99 seconds passed within this chapter. But also, this is actually insane. Like, every single person here, to some degree at first, we'll get to the one person who seems to break, but at first, everyone manages to withstand what is confirmed to be, confirmed, a full output. Let's see. Where is it? It's not here. Where's that text? Where's that juicy, sloppy, scrumbling, yumptious, juicy, dripping, throbbing, slobber knocking text? Let's see. A change of palm sign is a curse technique with a part of the brain affected by limited void. Having survived black flashes, Ryomen Sukuna generates Malevolent Shrine without a decrease in effective area or output. Y'all, it's crazy to say it, but y'all, Ino withstands with Simple Domain a full power Malevolent Shrine. Choso withstands a Simple Domain with a full power Malevolent Shrine. Yuji Itadori withstands a full power Malevolent Shrine with Simple Domain. All that. But the craziest thing is, Miwa! She withstands Malevolent Shrine. A full power, full output Malevolent Shrine. For Maki and herself. What? I gotta say, she's goated. Like, notably, I believe it's Broken Runner, right? I'm pretty sure it's Broken Runner. The one who started the whole idea of Miwa broken, Miwa the strongest, Miwa this, Miwa that. But you want to talk about coming in clutch, dog? Coming in clutch, motherfucker? Golly! Because Maki would be cooked. She'd be cooked. Like, she took damage from dismantles that were not at full output. They were getting stronger, but they weren't at full output. This is a full output Malevolent Shrine. And they're all eating it with Simple Domain, but Miwa's eating it, bro. No binding, just Miwa. With straight gate. Where's my hat? Where's my darn hat? Hold on. I don't want to put it too far down, else my hair will fall. But hats off to you, Miwa. Hats off. Golly gee willikers. I gotta put respect on it. However, of course, not all good things can stay forever. Not all shall remain gold. As Shoso declares, Yuji! As he sees a terrible fate. While many were able to resist it, the boy chosen by the Sparks of Black was unable to withstand the Malevolent Shrine. And admittedly, there are two things here. Number one, how come only his broke, right? But people pointed out, thank y'all, and that's why I love y'all for commenting. Ooh, thank you so much. But y'all explained the idea that, yeah, it's very likely that even though it's not said, Sukuna likely redirected a lot of the efficiency of Malevolent Shrine onto Yuji. Because Yuji is the biggest threat right now, right? Like, who else is here? Miwa. Maki. Well, Maki would be a big threat too. But still, he wouldn't know where Maki is. That's the funny thing. He has no clue where Maki is. He's just hoping that she's getting slashed apart. He can't tell where she is. And while he likely does sense Miwa, he probably doesn't know, oh, Miwa's the one guarding this new soul or this new level of Kursenji here. This is the one guarding the Zenin girl. He likely doesn't know that. So he's probably just wiling out, hoping that the max output can take care of Maki. But Yuji, in terms of the remaining threats, he's the biggest one. So, of course, he would focus a lot of his output onto Yuji. We didn't necessarily get to see that with Malevolent Shrine before, but we've seen it with other lesser domains, so it makes sense that Sukuna would be able to reallocate output like this. So Yuji likely takes a fat chunk of Malevolent Shrine here. But still, to his credit, once again, Yuji Itadori eats full output, not even full output dismantles, full output cleaves. Now personally, I was in the camp that Yuji, he's that guy for real, but he's not that much that guy. But I think this may just be the best durability feat. Like, next to Satoru Gojo? Like, notably, he's not even healing in the same way that Satoru Gojo did. At least not immediately. You see the slashes, they stay on him. He's not steaming or anything. Remember, Ryui Shigori, especially if you believe in finger scaling and that every single finger makes Sukuna stronger, Ryui Shigori fell to a 15 finger cleave. A Ryui Shigori who was recently confirmed to be bulkier than Yuta and Yuji, or at least these Shinjuku versions of Yuta and Yuji. But if this is to be taken at face value, since Yuji only, I know it sounds crazy, but he only uses a leg, or loses a leg here, I think nothing, this may sound crazy, Yuji may just be the bulkiest character in the verse right beneath Sukuna now. Or like right above Ryu. Like, I think he has to be. Because he survives. Like, notably, it's implied here at least the moment they break through the civil domain, the 99 seconds is up, the slash is stopped. That's what Yuji immediately acknowledges. But the fact that he even took any of these, and we know since he's a being with cursed energy, these are cleaves, which are meant to auto-adjust to him, and they're at full output, because it's a full output, full power Malevolent Shrine. Yuji eats that. That is crazy for his durability. So, 7 Black Flashes Yuji may just be the bulkiest character in the verse. If we're taking it straight at face value, he may just be that guy. Because I'm not sure exactly how to interpret this any other way. The domain stayed to be at full output. We know that he would be targeted by cleave. He gets hit by the cleaves, and he only loses the leg. And remember, he's still super duper fatigued. Of course, the Black Flash is still recovering him too, but recover that much? This is still a fatigued Yuji, and he manages to eat those. Of course, the question is, though, how much of this is built on Yuji's resistance? That's the only, like, counter argument I could see to not giving Yuji top 3 bulkies in the verse status. You could argue that since this is Sukuna, and technically he's Sukuna on, like, multiple levels, steeped in his cursed energy, was born with a finger inside of him, and is technically Sukuna's twin's kid, and by proxy, Sukuna's own kid. So maybe you can argue the reason he eats this so well is because it's his own cursed energy, and we know that your own cursed energy isn't as effective as it always could be. But still, regardless, this is a very, 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 very impressive feat based on how we know Cleave functions and based on how this Malevolent Shrine is stated to function. But with that being the case, Yuji loses the leg, but he doesn't lose it for long. He immediately reattaches it with blood manipulation, which is a nice little cool thing. Something little neat. He immediately attaches it back on, which shows he has really good control of blood manipulation at this point. And notably, we don't even see it steam. It just like clicks back on, cracks back on, and he's good. But we see that Malevolent Shrine is over, or at least presumably. It collapsed. 99 seconds is up. But notably, the weird thing, if that were to be the case, Ryomen Sukuna, despite having not recovered his RCT, he doesn't experience Curse Technique burnout. Wow. That's, like, once again, maybe, I'm not sure if this area right here is meant to imply that he still had, ooh, this is interesting, gets a new name here at the officials. In the TCBs, it was Furnace, but now in the officials, it's Divine Flame Open. To be continued. But, yeah, Ryomen Sukuna pulls out the flames. He uses Fuga for the first time in literally over 100 chapters. But, question, why didn't he experience domain burnout? Because the chapter goes out of its way to confirm that he didn't recover his RCT output. That's not back to normal or nothing. So he should still be running on E, right? Right? So why isn't he? What's working on here? Unless the domain is still active and he pulled a Yuta. But then again, no, Yuta. Yuta's weird though, because Rika's separate from him. Rika is not Yuta Shikigami in the sense that she's tied to her technique. She's kind of an interdependent curse latched onto him. So I wonder how. Is it... Because we know Sukuna experiences technique burnout regardless. Like, we know despite the fact that he applies Cleave and Dismantle, he applies Shrine to the domain, he still experiences post-domain burnout. That's why he had to use the whole brain healing thing. So it's interesting that he's able to use what presumably is another application of Shrine so easily when he's supposed to be experiencing burnout, unless he's like in the last dregs of this 99-second Malevolent Shrine right before burnout's meant to occur. I don't know, but that is interesting. But the other interesting thing now is how they beating that? Like what's the next move? I don't actually know. That's the crazy thing. I'm not sure what the next move is, because this is dangerous and devious. I'm not sure bro's MANJI kicking this one. I'm not sure if he can punch and kick that fire away. I'm interested to see how he deals with that. Honestly, I wouldn't be mad if he pulls a Poe. Yeah. Straight up. Like, if he just, like, redirects it or something. Because he's going to need to do something crazy to deal with this Divine Flame. Because it looks like Sukuna's about to start cooking. Unless we went out of our way to mention her. I know y'all going to be sick and tired of hearing me glazing. But welcome to That Guy with the Pencil, where if there's one thing we push, it's agendas. And if there's one thing we do, it's glaze. A certain Miss Zenin is doing just fine. You know, she lived that Black Flash into Dismantle combo. She's up and well. Right now, Sukuna, he got 2 arms. They look nice and juicy, them 2 arms, right? They look clean, look buttery, look delicious. They look mad sliceable. Mad cuttable. Oh, no. I think maybe it's time for Maki's ending to come and save the day once again. You know my goat. But that aside, I do think Akari. I think Akari. Like, we kind of have to, so now. Unfortunately, I do think this kind of does lock off any sort of anime Maharaga moment for Akari, where we get to see him walking through Malevolent Shrine, which kind of sucks. I kind of did want to see Akari experience this Malevolent Shrine, but still. You couldn't tell by my extensive yapping, all the different theorizing I did, everything that has to come with this. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Ah. This chapter is definitely worthy. But if you made it all the way to the end of this chunker, this thicky dicky of a video, please do me a favor and leave divine destruction in the comment section down below. And thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure that the notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have another picture down below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month. Things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So those perks will include the 25-minute live reaction to this very chapter, every variations of all my videos, and if you become a $25 Patreon and $25 member, you can order whatever video you want. Also, I do have a link to my Ko-Fi in the description down below if you want to leave a one-time donation for your boy, and if you want to drop a quick $25 one-time donation to order a video of your own, the link is in the description down below. Now, I do thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dad with a Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members: Kleiner Plays, Greyhound, Kids Void, Astro, Eternal Flame, Red Wolf 4765, G Prosper, Paris Arnold, King Sukuna, and NMA. I'd like to give a thank you to our $5 patrons: Steron, Sean, Owexian, Midnight Lord 21, Kevin Encarnacion, Josh Brown, John Malcolm, and Igneal Lynn. And I'd like to give another thank you to our $7 member, Autumn Mornings Lazo. And I'd like to give a big old thank you to our $10 members, Robbie Uchiha and Jay Warrior. And I'd like to give another big old thank you to our $10 patrons, Panda Goat, Joaquin Munoz, and Idemokami. And finally, I'd like to give a big, hefty gargantuan thank yous to our $25 patron, China Doll 09. I'd like to give another gargantuan toe-curling slobbanaba dabba dabba thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.